It took him 10 years to write it. So, therefore, this is basically when we're talking about, speaking about the Rambam and the Svarim and how every word is measured in weight. So this goes for everything. What he wrote in medicine, what he wrote, there's a book called, in medicine, he wrote a book called Pirkei Moshe B'Refuah. It is based a lot on Galinos, on Galilei, and different medical people in that time. But it's translated in Hebrew. It's called Pirkei Moshe B'Refuah. Different things. Now, when we're discussing all these different opinions, so getting back now to the question that a person picks up the Talmud, and the Talmud says, for this and this problem, you should do this and this. So the question is, it doesn't work. Not always do we see it should work. So the answer that's given in general is, on many different questions, in regards to the change of the status, it's called Nishtanu Hativim. The nature changed. The nature of the bodies changed. The nature of the world changed. So therefore, people today, the bodies are not responsive as they would respond in the times of the Talmud. The same way that the bodies are weaker in a sense from 7 generations ago. I mean, actually, even 7 generations ago, the Alter Rebbe writes that the generations are weaker, getting weaker. So the question is, if the nature changed, what does this mean? Does it mean that, God forbid, Torah is not eternal? So the answer is, this will also be understood with another question, another explanation on another topic, and with this we'll understand this issue over here. There are certain mitzvahs that the Talmud tells us, that certain commandments, that in instances that the Talmud tells us it never happened. The Talmud in Sanhedrin says in a certain page, I think it's around page 70, that Ben Seder Ameira, a rebellious child with all the different factors that the Talmud says, the criteria that a rebellious child needs to meet, which means basically he ate meat, he didn't have meat. It was many different conditions. He bought from his own money. It was a lot of different things. So it says it never happened. Then comes another opinion, says, I sat at the grave of this kind of a child, rebellious child. Then the Talmud tells us another thing. The Ir HaNedachas, a city which served idols, they started to worship idols. So that's have to be destroyed. It's called Ir HaNedachas, that they're completely destroyed. So the Talmud says that never happened. So Chassidus asked the question, and actually in Tanya, the Rav Shneimur Zalman of Liadi addresses it in the end of the Tanya, in Kunter Sachar, in the 5th section, and he asked the question to understand, what does it mean, mitzvahs that never happened? They're commandments. So is it fiction? Is it something that's we're just thinking theoretically? The answer is they are real commandments. But in this physical world, the conditions did not allow in a physical sense that there should be a vessel in which and through which we can fulfill these commandments. The same thing is in regards to medicine. When we say nishtanu hativim, that means the nature of world does not allow that in this physical world it can practically be relevant. It can practically come down in a way that we can use it today, because the generations are different. The same thing is also in regard to the mitzvah of Amalek. Coming up, this Shabbos is already blessing the month of Adar, Purim. And the Shabbos before Purim, we read about remembering Amalek. So the question is, the mitzvah of Amalek is an everlasting mitzvah. It's not like it's off and it's on. It's not like a switch. Oh, now there's no commandment destroying Amalek. The commandment is still there. The thing is, we don't know who is Amalek. And therefore, because we don't know who is Amalek, so therefore it cannot come down in a practical sense. So this is basically an answer to many different questions that and how Chassidus approaches it. It is basically, there's the revelation and there's the vessel. The revelation is there, but there's no wick or vessel to contain it, that we should be able to relate to it in a practical sense in this physical world. Okay, getting now to the idea in regards to the Talmud, as we mentioned earlier. In the Talmud there are also different things that are called kmeyas. A kmeya means when somebody says a certain thing, which today it's more in a mystical sense. It's a Kabbalah thing. They're mentioning certain names, a certain line, which is based on Kabbalah. It's a mystical sentence or quote, and this should help in different things. For example, the Talmud tells us in Shabbos, when the Talmud speaks about the idea of Kmeyas, so that is in Shabbos, it should be 67. A very interesting thing over there. It says, what does a person do if they have a bone in the throat? Bone got stuck in the throat. So there's a certain lachash, it's called a lachash. That's a kmeya, which a person says over it, and that should help that it releases the bone, that the bone should pass, or should come out. So this is called a kmeya. In halacha, in Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Law, there are many different halachas in Yeridea, in the part of Yeridea, which discusses the halachas of a doctor. That is in the part of Yeridea. It's the chapter 336. So it discusses different halachas. But then there is a whole group, as physicians were all aware of it, that there are different halachas in regards to Shabbos. What does a person do Shabbos if a medical situation comes up? How serious is the medical situation? If it's something which is a very serious situation, so then a Jewish life comes first. I mean, saving a life is the priority. But then there are certain situations where you cannot do it yourself. You have to ask someone that is not Jewish to do it, to help in that. Because it is not something that really demands that the person himself, a Jewish person, should desecrate the Shabbos. So there are many different halachas in regards to different parts of the body. If there's an ailment or there's a pain in a certain part of the body. So this is a whole group of halachas in chapter 328 in the Code of the Jewish Law, and it is in Eirach Chaim, in Hilchas Shabbos Eirach Chaim. My father once wrote also in English. My father was mentioned as a physician. He wrote in English different halachic matters that comes up for Shabbos, or kashrus, like what a person could take, what a person can take. I mean, he was very involved and connected with Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, and he really directed many questions that he had to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein would answer him. He also had connection with Rabbi Henkin. So he has many different things that he received from him orally, and I mean, one of the things, speaking about kashrus, taking a tablet. Instead of taking the powder, pouring it into juice, the person is swallowing down a tablet. Some of these tablets are made from fat of animals. Certain tablets, the plastic of these tablets, are made from unkosher animals. Either it is chaylev, the fat of the animal, or the skin. There are many different things. My father did research, and it was like amazing exactly, what does a person do? So there's two options. One is they should either open the tablet and pour it into juice and drink it down, or they should wrap it up at least with some small little thin something and swallow it down with it, in order that itself should not be touching the throat. It should just come down. Once it's in the body, it's in the body already. Others say that since a person is anyway not taking it directly like eating, it's just swallowing it down, so it's different. There are different opinions, but people are not aware that there are today many different things are capsules that are made from derived, partially derivatives from animals, and bones from animal bones, fats. I mean, my father once wrote it up in English, a whole article about that. In addition to that, he also wrote in regards to Shabbos, that instead of it having to sign the name, it's better a person should have a stamp, the signature already, so he'll be able to just give them a prescription of whatever they need instead of needing to write his name. Many different things, squeezing out something. So my father said I should have lachatchila cloths. There are many ideas that my father wrote. It's in English, it's in Hebrew. And it's interesting how it was original in many different things. And this is in regards to Shabbos. So remedies in Shabbos is a whole world for itself. It originates from the Talmud, in the tractate of Shabbos, but then there's laws, there's many laws that relate to it. On one hand, we say if it's saving a person's life, a person should not ask any questions. A person that asks is considered spilling blood. That's what it says. Hasheyel harezeritzeach shefech domim is considered spilling blood, because in such a time a person should not ask questions. On the other hand, a person should know exactly what he is permitted to do, what a person is not permitted to do. The Rebbe once told my father, you are limited with two things, halacha and medicine. And he was both together, and he had to work them both together, and needed to come up with different ideas how to juggle them as one. So this is basically in regards to the different opinions from the three different giants in Jewish history and physicians, and in addition to that also in regards to halacha, how it relates to us, that we need to look into the code of the Jewish law when it comes to Shabbos, or even when it comes to medicine or medication, to ask, is this medication kosher or is it not kosher? This is in regards to the Talmud. Now we go on to the Zohar. There are three different quotes. Basically, there's one quote from the Zohar, and then there are quotes from Hasidus, that Hasidus quotes the attributes which we relate to medicine. Okay, there's a famous verse. We had it 2 weeks ago in the Torah portion. It says Ki ani Hashem Rifecha. That Ani Hashem, the Almighty is your healer. That's how the Torah portion of the splitting of the sea and the song that they sang then concludes with these words, that the Almighty says, I will not place any, if you listen to my commandments, I will not place any illness on you. Ki ani Hashem Rifecha, I'm your healer. The words Ki ani Hashem Rifecha spell out the acronym Arich. Ki ani Hashem Rifecha is 4 letters. When you put it in a different place, in a different sequence, it is the word Arich, Aleph, Reish, Yud, Chaf. And an abbreviation between the Yud and the Chaf, because this is basically the 4 words. Now what does Arich mean? In attributes, Arich is Keser. It's the crown. It's above the 10 attributes. And the reason that this relates to healing is because in order to correct a problem, we need to draw down from a higher level. Problems usually show on limitations, restrictions, lack of different things, and therefore we need to draw down an energy from a higher level. The higher level is Keser, the crown. That is above the 10 attributes. The 10 attributes are reflected in world. Everything in the world is 10.